Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Our today's discussion is about next prominent thinker of your syllabus, about Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke period was 1729 to 1797. Edmund Burke belonged to Great Britain. He remained popular not only as a political philosopher but also a great politician of England. He also popular due to his speeches as a debater, and he also considered a very good writer. He have interested in law and also in literature and in politics. When we discuss about Edmund Burke, then we find out that he was considered also a conservative thinker, also a reformer, and also a politician, and his contributions made him a great thinker of his time. Edmund Burke wrote many essays, books, pamphlets, and many philosophical writings. He practically participated in politics, and he also became member of parliament at the age of 36. He opposed the efforts of George III and supporters to throw aside the gains of the Glorious Revolution. The king attempted to subvert the principles of democracy and concentrated authority in his own hand, compelled the ministers to become personality or personally responsible to him. At this point, Burke clearly and very openly resisted the king's policies and became the dominant figure among the king's opponents. Although he never attained a cabinet slot, but he was an influential member of the Whig Party. His major interest was preservation of the Constitution against the aggressive policies of the king. He also took the interest to defend the Irish, American, and Indian against the tyranny of English rule. He attacked upon revolutionary principle which grew out of French Revolution, which compelled him to write his reflections on the revolution in France in 1790. This publication had a considerable effect upon the development of English opinion about French Revolution. Burke also remained associated with the impeachment of Warren Hastings, who was involved about the violation of human rights of Indian peoples during the period of colonialism. The sudden death of Edmund Burke's son gave him unbearable shock, and then he could not bear the shock, and in these conditions he resigned from the membership of the House of Commons. But he remained a popular member of House of Commons, and his contribution always remained popular in the history of Western philosophy. When we discuss about his contribution, then we find out that he was definitely considered a prominent philosophical politician who devoted a full 30 years of his life in practical politics of his country. His political theories and ideas are not be traced out in any classics like Social Contract or The Prince or The Leviathan, but Burke's political ideas remained popular regarding the political circumstances of England at that period. His writings, his written work can be found in his different books, pamphlets, letters, speeches, and essays, and particularly he wrote in response to particular political events. So his views from his speeches, essays, letters, and books remained remarkable as a great contribution in the political philosophy. His major contributions to the subject of political science were: number one, reflections on the French Revolution; next, thoughts on the causes of present discontents; next, speech on conciliation with America; speech on American taxation; vindication of natural society. It is also very important contribution of Edmund Burke. Next, thoughts on French affairs. Next, appeal from new to the old Whig; speeches on impeachment of Warren Hastings. So, Burke adopted the historical method like Montesquieu and other thinkers to address the problems of his period, and he presented his views, his philosophy in the light of his historical method. Now I explained you about Edmund Burke's views about the state and society. Edmund Burke was the follower of Locke, being the member of Whig Party, and he was not agree with the Locke's concept of social contract and the natural rights. So, he rejected the theory of social contract and natural rights of Locke, and he explained his own views regarding the state and society and natural rights. According to Burke, state is not a man-made machine but a complicated organism in which the efforts of individual have certainly helped to shape. But those evolutions and destiny cannot be wholly understood by an individual. He believes that the way in which a state evolves and develops is largely determined by forces to which no individual can fully comprehend it. When their interests clash with the fundamentals of the community, then there will be a conflict. Burke draws no distinction between the state and society. He emphasizes on the religious basis of society. To him, civil society rests on a spiritual foundation because man also think about his divine life, divine and religious aspect of his life. Not only society but state is also a divine institution. The political community had a biological development. It was more like an organism than an organization. It was possessed of some kind of life, subject to growth and change. So, Edmund Burke's concept of the state is that state constantly changed as its old institutions became obsolete and needed modification or removal. Therefore, he opposed to all those theories and views about the state on the basis of abstract philosophical principles. He further denied that society could be reformed by abstract human reason. According to Burke, society is needed a contract, but this contract not on the basis as Locke explained in his writings. He further believes that man is also a political animal and state has become indispensable necessity to realize his ends. Individual cannot survive without state because of his close association with the state, and state protects the all natural rights of the individuals. Moreover, individuals enter into political partnership with the state for the pursuit of knowledge and virtue. So, the state is regarded as partnership not only between those who are living but those who are dead and those who are to be born. After examining Edmund Burke's views about society and state, now I explain you his views about natural rights of individuals. Edmund Burke has bitterly criticized the conception of Locke of natural rights, as he has given theory of natural rights in Social Contract, in which he has not formally rejected the inherent primary rights of individuals, rights of life, liberty, and equality, but he ignored them. Burke was against deductive thinking in politics. He did not discuss the rights but admitted them as valid, which were based on civil laws of the state, provided that civil laws were in a conformity with the divine laws of God, which are being superior to all types of laws. The real rights to include the rights to live, right to justice, right to fruits of one industry, and to the means making industry fruitful. Burke believes that there is no system of natural rights within the orbit of states, because there is an essential conflict between the natural character of rights and restrictions or limitations or regulations as are imposed by the state. To be a people and to have those rights are things incompatible. One supposes the presence and the other absence of the state of civil society. So, man cannot enjoy the rights of an uncivil and of a civil state together. So, according to Burke, the full recognition of natural rights would lead to anarchy in the society. Overall, Burke clearly explains that rights in abstract were wrongs, but rights in concrete. He concedes that there can not exist certain natural rights in the abstract. He recognized that rights do not exist abstractly but concentrally in the society. He argues that so-called natural rights, as they actually exist in the society, undergo such a variety of refractions and reflections that it becomes absurd to talk of them as they continue in the similarity of their original direction. During this discussion, Burke further explained that natural right to life is philosophical true and concedes that he would agree in the abstract that all have natural right to property. He says that the point is whether people have a right to life and property, but how these rights actually exist in the society. In fact, they have undergone all kinds of social refraction and reflections. They have utterly modified by society and no longer exist in their theoretically pure form. No one has an absolute right to property under every condition, nor for that matter even to life. So, Burke's concept about natural rights are metaphysically true, but morally and politically false. The more precisely a right can be stated in absolute philosophic form and more politically and morally destructive it will when put into political practice. So, any attempt to apply an abstract right to society can only destroy that right as it actually exists. The more abstractly true right, the more it destructive must be. It is true that the human beings are created equal, but they do not enjoy equal right in the political society. This point is very important in our discussion, and I repeat it again that he emphasizes that it is true, it is reality that the human beings are created equal, but they do not enjoy equal right in the political society. Any attempt to impose equality of rights by political means can destroy the existing rights. Burke makes the important discovery that the principle of natural right, when carried in their pure form into political practices, contradict the principles of perspective right. He understands that political domain is destroyed whenever it is made to conform to purely philosophical principles. He further explained and cleared that reason and rationality have no place in politics. After examining Edmund Burke's views about natural rights, now I explain you Edmund Burke as a conservative reformer or as a reformer or as a conservative thinker. The word conservative, like liberalism, is very employed to define attitude towards specific policies. The liberalism today is a considerable degree of governmental control over private property, while conservatism opposes such control and takes stand for free enterprise. The term liberal implies an interest in liberty, but conservatives says that they are also concerned with liberty. The liberals sacrifice liberty to gain security. The conservatives are interested a disproportional share of property, and that true liberty for the individual is meaningless unless he enjoys a minimum of security. So, the agreement over meaning of the terms often flies off into confusion. The term conservatism has different meaning with Burke. He has the great respect for the established government and its institutions, the laws, religion, classes, customs, and traditions, as they embodied the wisdom of traditions, because it is presumed to be historically rational, more rational than political scheme proposed by an individual thinker. Another most important aspect of Burke's conservatism is his distrust of abstract reason. He objects the idea that the rational man can view his situation analyze the causes of his trouble, and through intelligence rearrange the institutions and improve their existence. This is a dangerous idea which can lead towards the revolution and destruction of existing institutions. Burke was a practical politician to have faith in the violent method of resolving problems. For him, it is experience that counts. Over the years, people develop institutions and methods for solving problems for the welfare of masses, but the abstract reason cannot meet the test. Burke believes that institutions are not unreasonable, but they have developed from a higher reason. A single man, a group of men, and a single generation of men are incapable for understanding the knowledge that have accumulated over the years and have been incorporated over the society we have inherited. This point is also very contributory and very important. In this point, we can further explain here that Edmund Burke highlighted his great concern about the process of evolution, and due to these views, Burke was always considered a reformer and never a revolutionary. He never liked revolution. He liked the process of evolution, changes through reforms, changes with the changing circumstances. So, he says that the disposition to preserve and ability to improve taken together would be my standard of a statement. And he clearly explained that the disposition to preserve and the ability to improve taken together would be my standard of a statement. If cannot reform with equity, I will not reform at all. So, he clearly explained that if I cannot reform with equity, I will not reform at all. Burke regard the political change that a government must be changed and improved only by changes through different reforms. Burke also explains that absolute and large scale change like revolution is not play important role in the history. So Burke provides no absolute clear-cut rules for reforms. He was opposed to any absolute rule in politics. Therefore, he objected such absolute rules on the part of French revolutionaries. However, he provided certain guidelines to constitute the basic legislative philosophy of conservatism, not to force the public inclination, but to give direction to general sense of community is the true end of legislator. In other words, to make laws that reflect changes in society rather to rather to change society by making laws. This is true art of reform. The legislator should follow the general sense of community rather than force the public inclinations. So, he clearly explained that to make laws that reflect changes in society rather to change society by making laws. This is the true art of reform. The legislator should follow the general sense of community rather than force the public inclination. Burke explains that in making reforms, the statesman must represent the whole nation, not just his constituency, because the society is an organic whole and not simply collection of people. The political philosophy is of Burke is for all subsequent conservative thought which was framed in opposition to revolutionary liberalism. Therefore, he opposed the French revolutionaries and pleaded for the reforms in society by improving the conditions rather not by destroying the existing institutions, customs, or traditions. He, his concept also based, his views also based precisely upon the appreciation of values and uniqueness of all cultures. Because, as I have earlier explained you that Edmund Burke was a conservative thinker. Being a conservative thinker, he always appreciated values and uniqueness of cultural values, traditions. So it was this appreciation that led him to indict British rule in India and to defend the legitimacy of American colonist complaint the British regime. While during this discussion, Burke as a conservative thinker, I briefly explain you about his views about British constitutions. Burke very clearly his defense for the British Constitution clearly represent the justification of conservation at its best. He firmly believed that all the troubles of the government started from the efforts of George III to extend his royal influence and to arrest the powers of Parliament. For achieving his ambitious ends, King George III invented a double cabinet system which enabled a faction to rule by the private instructions of the king against the general sense of the people and behind the backs of the official ministers of king. Burke deeply thought of the parliamentary members and their duties in the constitutional system of government. His essential argument was that although parliamentary government had developed from obscure organism in a way which was not wholly intelligible, the fact that it had so developed could be taken as proof that it fulfilled a function of vital importance. To reserve the course of its development, the function of vital importance. To reserve the course of its development as George III sought to do was in his own view to oppose fundamental developments of vital importance to the community as a whole. Burke was always praiseful. He always praised for English Constitution by saying that it was an ideal constitution and surrounded by all traditional institutions. So he clearly explained importance of traditions in the Constitution of Britain. While concluding most important aspects of Edmund Burke's philosophy, one point is very clear that Burke remained a reformer, and he also praised British Constitution. He likes evolutionary process rather than revolutionary process. His writings has a great influence on different concepts of modern political philosophy. Burke became popular as a practical political thinker, and he considered as a political thinker due to his reforms, in existing institutions for their betterment, and these reforms must be based on the realization of the complexities of human and political life, for pure philosophy would not do. Burke was pragmatic and utilitarian in his views and historical in his method. His writings were also become popular because his writings were comprised of the contemporary burning issues and burning events like the French Revolution, like the American Revolution, and he wrote against social contract and about natural rights. So he also became popular due to his major contribution that he openly criticized British government about their colonial periods and about their different critical policies about taxation and other different political policies in colonial areas. So he propounded the philosophy of conservatism. He adopted historical method for the solution of political problem, and he contributed for Whig Party. As a member of Whig Party, he played his very important and contributory role in the politics of Great Britain. When we analyze his major contribution, then we find out that his speeches in the parliament and his views greatly influenced later philosophy of 18th and 19th century. So With these remarks, with these views, I conclude today's discussion. And Edmund Burke, as a practical politician, as a practical reformer, as a practical philosopher, contributed a lot in the history of Western political thought, and that is the end of our today's discussion.